Alright, welcome to the November devlog for Cuirass of Conquest. So, unlike the previous devlogs, I'm gonna do this one quick and dirty because I still haven't finished the world map, and I'd like to get that done as soon as possible. So instead of spending 3, 4, or more days working on the devlog, I'm just gonna knock this out in like an hour. I've already been working on it a little bit, you'll see shortly. But yeah, it's gonna be just quick, but it will cover a lot of the information about the attack system and the attack phase. So, right now, just before I get into it, the current alpha timeline is looking like I will have a playable alpha ready to start testing numbers and things probably in 2024, hopefully early 2024. But the longer it takes me to finish the world map, and the longer it takes me to finish the UI and the input system and the models for the units, etc., obviously the longer it'll take for me to get around to putting the code that I have already ready into Unity along with the UI and things as I make them. But Unity did just announce and start doing a online multiplayer native stuff thing. So, yeah, I hope that by the time I'm ready to start plugging things into Unity, they have that mostly figured out. Because I would love to have online multiplayer by default from the beginning. But that is future me's problem, and I'll burn that bridge when I get to it. For now, let's discuss the simultaneous attack system, the attack phase, and troop deployment. So, we'll begin with some terminology that will be useful for the rest of the devlogs. There are heroes, and each hero is whatever class, has whatever abilities, etc. The key thing that makes it a hero... The key thing that makes it a hero is that it is able to have monsters that are in its squad. So, the hero, the guy who has character classes and has the ability, he has a crest, thus has crest power, which he can then use to exert control of monsters. So, that allows this entire unit of thing to be a squad. So, hero is a hero, monsters are assigned to a hero, and a squad is the hero with the monsters. And that's relevant because each territory has at least, well, it doesn't have to. If you leave it undefended, the territory will have no squads in it. But each territory, if there are squads present, will have a list of squads that are in that territory. And these are the units that can attack from and defend this territory. So, that means whenever you have... Oops, not that. Whenever you have other territories, and whenever those territories have a route to your territory, if they attack your territory, then whatever squad list you have will be which defenders you can choose from. And so adjacency includes the direct path. So even if there are two territories that are close to each other, if they are not directly connected, then they cannot attack each other. And territories are significant because if you lose all of your territories, you're out of the game. And territories generate resources for you to summon monsters, make items, etc., as well as the goal being to unite the entire world, so conquering all of the territories. Each territory has a hex map, a battlefield that is assigned to it, which is 33 hexes by 33 hexes. So each territory has a specific battlefield for fights over that territory. The attack phase is the portion of the overworld system where you see all these territories and you're assigning attacks and keeping track of which enemies have which squads and heroes and monsters adjacent to your territories. The attack commands can be issued and canceled freely until you lock in your decisions at the toward the end of the attack phase. Technically, the battles are still part of the attack phase, but they come after every player has locked in their attack orders and their attack commands. And that is all the terminology that is necessary. So, really quick, the information you have to work with at the beginning of the attack phase is everything that was done by every player during the organized phase, including movement of troops, summoning new monsters, etc., etc. You're able to see every hero and monster in each territory, and the status of those heroes and monsters in each territory, including what class they are, if they change classes during the organized phase, or whatever. So you are able to freely look at the list of squads in any adjacent territory, or any territory at all, but specifically you'd be more interested in the ones that are adjacent to you, so that you can see who might possibly attack you, and if you want to use your squads to attack them, you can see what they might be against, which may decide which territory you attack of the available targets. By default, the heroes and monsters do not heal to full or regain all of their mana or what have you between battles. So you could potentially have a situation where you have already attacked and retreated and attacked and retreated and softened up a target, but then they moved in additional forces, or another player might have moved forces into an adjacent castle, or whatever. So you basically, at the start of the attack phase, see all the information across the world, and you are able to choose whether to attack or not, and to anticipate whether or not you will be attacked based on the status of the different heroes and monsters. Now, all of this has many balancing levers that I have included in the systems. So I can adjust how many squads can attack, how many squads defend, various things like that. But each player is putting in their attack commands independent of each other. So you won't know until you lock in your attacks whether or not an enemy will attack you. So even if they only have one hero and one monster, one hero and a couple monsters, and you've got 3, if you choose to attack somewhere else, they might have chosen to attack you with one kamikaze squad. And if you moved all of your defenders to attack, they're going to capture your territory without effort, even though they only had the one squad. So it has the simultaneous nature of the attack commands adds a very interesting level of depth to what to do on your attack phase turns. And to add on to this, if you have a castle back here, and that's awful, I know, I don't care. Say you have an additional castle that's adjacent that has a couple squads, you could potentially, based on the current systems in place, do a reinforcement action to assist a castle that might be getting attacked. So this system has a lot of balancing levers that I've included, including commitment, so that if you choose to reinforce at the end of your turn, the troops are moved there regardless, etc., whatever. We'll get into more information when I talk about the organized phase as far as troop movements and things, but the simplest and most important factor about troop movements is if troops were just moved to a territory, they cannot attack that turn. So you always have at least one turn heads up that you might get attacked, because the squads have to have started the organized phase at that particular territory to be able to attack from it. So you can't just do a quick little blitzkrieg where you drop all of your troops or all your squads into a territory and then immediately attack from it without much warning. I may completely remove the option to have the reinforcements completely, but right now it's something I'm looking at to balance out the fact that every single attack goes through. So if you're attacked by two different players, or even the same player from two different territories, they will each get the maximum allowed attacking squads versus your maximum allowed defending squads, which could be basically however many I choose to allow. It could also just be a setting, which probably will be in the main menu, where you can just choose how many defending squads are available, how many attacking squads are available, whatever. The deployment system, which I'll get to in a moment, doesn't really care at all. And so the reinforcement, I can balance that by only allowing a certain number of reinforcement squads or whatever, but the idea is the battlefield will have these squads in the northwest, these squads in the southwest, your defenders in the center, and then the reinforcement in the southeast. So you could potentially use those to, say, split the enemies, whatever. We'll get into that more once we talk about the actual battlefield deployment things. But it is, again, important to note that every attack goes through. There is no system, such as in Brigandine, where you choose to attack and your attack just doesn't happen, whether it be because stronger force or whatever, or RNG or whatever. No, every single attack goes off. So, as I said, if you are attacking somewhere and somebody else attacks you, your troops that are attacking cannot defend the territory. Now, you may be asking, what happens if they're attacking you and you're attacking them? It wouldn't make much sense for the armies to just walk past each other to attack the other to attack the territory behind them. And that's exactly correct. Each path between castles has a battlefield of its own. And if two forces from two territories that are adjacent attack each other, the battle happens on that mutual battlefield. Now, at the end of that battle, if one side retreats, they cannot defend because they already spent the turn attacking. So they are already spent for that attack phase. The other force gets to go on with their attack. So this allows... I know this is messy, I understand. I'll be able to give a much better demonstration once the alpha is actually up and running. But for now, this is how this is working. The mutual battlefield, the mutual battles all happen before the territory defenses happen to see who goes on to their actual attack target. And then, as I said, whoever was defeated in the mutual battle is spent for that attack phase and cannot then defend the territory. I can change that. I do have the ability in the system to make it so that, yes, after being defeated the first time, they can then defend the territory as well, but it seems imbalanced to do it that way, so they're just spent for the attack phase at present with the systems currently the way they are. Now, there is a turn limit per battle, and if neither player wins the mutual battle, then neither of them goes on to attack, and neither of them is available to defend. So basically, the draw in the mutual battle just means that those forces canceled each other out. That's significant because if you were planning on attacking a castle from two directions, and they attacked you in one of those directions, they may have intercepted forces that you were counting on to help you capture the territory. And that is mutual invasions, put simply. Hopefully that wasn't too hard to follow. Definitely leave a comment in the description if you would like clarification. I'm always more than happy to talk about my game, and it takes a lot less time to respond to comments than it does to make a full, very well illustrated, etc. devlog. Again, these will not be the most common type, but these will be the ones when I'm trying to hurry up and get something done. So, we have now gone over the mutual invasions. I did not explicitly say it, so we'll go ahead and explicitly say it. If this is player 1, this is player 2, and this is player 3, player 1 and player 2 can both attack, and they will both be in the territory defense battle at the same time. It will be a free-for-all. So, it may be of benefit to player 3 to just step back in the battlefield, let the other two fight over the castle, and then come in and try to take it back from them. The turn limit on mutual invasions will be shorter than the turn limit for full-scale territory defenses, but it should be possible to hold off against a superior number of attackers. Not easy, but possible. Every attack is planned separately from each other. Every player's attacks are planned separately, and then you see at the end of the overworld attack phase where everyone is attacking. And then the battles play out. So, let's go ahead and discuss the battles. So, every battlefield, as I said, is a 33 by 33 hex grid. This is roughly a square. That's an awful square, I know, but it's roughly a square. Actually, I'm going to make it bigger so that I can better illustrate. So basically, every battlefield is a square of 33 hexes by 33 hexes. This is important because the absolute center hex for every territory is always going to be the castle being defended. If the turns run out before there is a single player left standing, whoever controls the castle hex wins the battle. And whoever controls the castle hex and wins the battle has ownership of the territory on the following turn. We'll get to that in a second, but it is most important to understand that the area directly around the castle, which roughly is, basically there's a hexagon of deployment area for the defenders. So the defenders can deploy anywhere in the center of the map. They can put their troops in whatever formation they would like, wherever they would like, although you do get bonuses to defense if you're in the castle hex or an adjacent hex. Then the different areas are split up into the different cardinal directions. This looks awful. I know the actual layout is much cleaner. So if you're attacking from the north, you're going to be in that section. Northeast, east, southeast, south, southwest, west, and northwest. Those are the quadrants that you can deploy into if you're attacking from those particular directions. Some territories can only be attacked from, one direction. Some can be attacked from many. And whenever you're setting up for the battle, everyone will deploy their troops without knowing how how their opponents have deployed the troops. So, if you, say, are being attacked by player 1 from the north and player 2 from the east, as the defender, you might want to set up your entire battalion far to the southwest, as I was just saying a minute ago. So, hopefully, player 1 and player 2 go and fight over the castle, and then after they've killed some of their units off, you can hopefully push in and retake it before the turn limit expires. Or you might instead deploy right in front of one of the enemies to try to take them out and then sweep over to take the other out. Or to just fall back to defend the castle after you've eliminated one of the opponents. Now, obviously, if you're being attacked from multiple directions by the same player, you're probably just going to be overrun, which I feel like is balanced, considering you've allowed the overworld to basically come against you. If you've got a territory that's getting surrounded and you don't push back or fall back, you're probably just set up for a failure and a loss in the battle itself. Now, if there is no defending force at a territory, if player 3 does not have any squads available to defend, and player 1 or 2 attacks, they just capture the territory for free. However, if player 1 and player 2 attack, even if there's no defenders, they still fight over the territory to see who gets the undefended territory. So sometimes, especially if you're starting to lose the war, it may be beneficial for you to fall back from a territory and just let other players fight over it. But the key thing to keep in mind with the battlefields is that it is a free deployment system. So at the start of the battle, everyone will have essentially a turn. We'll get to how turns work in just a moment. It depends on whether you're playing against AI, hot seat, or online. But we'll get to that in a moment. It just gives you a lot of tactical choices involving each battle. And you're freely able to deploy however you want in your particular deployment zone. So again, with this example of player 1 and player 2, let's just say player 2, instead of being to the east, is to the northeast. And the battle is going to be them marching towards the castle very close together. So they may send 2 of their squads to immediately attack the other player that's attacking and set up maybe a more tanky or more direct combat squad to push the castle itself and start dealing with the defenders, while their flanking forces potentially take out the other player that's attacking and then sweep around into a wonderful flanking maneuver. There is a lot of depth to be had from this particular system of combat, and I very much look forward to getting the data from the alpha test and balancing it out to try to make it just a complete, just chef's kiss moment of every battle is interesting and deep, and it's not just a stat check. Because I feel like that's one of the problems that a lot of strategy games that have tactical combat run into. If every battle is just a stat check, and you get stronger from winning battles, and you get weaker from losing battles, at some point you're just guaranteed to win. And that was one of the key focuses as I was developing the systems, to try to eliminate, or at the very least delay till the very last second, that feeling of, oh, I already won, now I just need to go through the motions of finishing the battle, or finishing the war. So, that is troop deployment. And also, you will not be able to see how the enemies are deploying, but you will know, for example, if you're the defender, when you're dropping your troops in, you will know if you're being attacked by player 1 from the north and player 2 from the east. You will know that somewhere in those sectors, they have deployed whatever squads they managed to bring in. And obviously, you'll know from the mutual invasion whether or not that force is coming in, or how strong it is, or whatever. I am considering modifying the mutual invasion system to allow for multiple directions to run into each other, basically. So even if they're not attacking the same or, opposing territories, they would still be able to interfere with each other's attacks, potentially. But that's future me's problem. At present, I only have the system designed to allow one-on-one fights in between territories. But that is a potential expansion path that I'm looking at. And it very well may be exactly that. I may release the game as is, and then if it does very well, add on expansion content that even further deepens the gameplay and adds even more nuance and strategy to it. But, at present, like I said, the mutual invasion is very straightforward. If you attack each other, you fight a battle in between that determines who goes on to attack who. Or I guess that would be a whom, whatever. So, the battle's very straightforward. If at any point everyone except for one player retreats or is defeated, that player wins. And at any point you can retreat as long as it's your turn. I do want to make note that the territories have the possibility. I do have an entire section of the code set aside for potential alternative effects or additional effects to a territory being conquered or defended. So just throwing out some ideas, I could turn off the mana generation for that territory on the turn it is conquered, or I can boost the mana generation for that territory if it is successfully defended. Like, oh man, we're being attacked, we better crank up production. Whatever. I can add items, I can have monsters, summoned for free or whatever. Anything that I can have happen in the game, I can have happen as a result of a territory being conquered or successfully defended. And, yeah, that's essentially the entire system. However, there is the one final thing to discuss. And that is the difference between AI play, hot seat co-op, or not hot seat, well, co-op possibly. Anyway, the hot seat online or against bots, AI. So the territory, or the territory defense and combat and everything will work exactly the same way. All of that will be the same. But for hot seat, there's going to be a pop-up that says player X's turn, so whatever turn, and it's going to have a button to click. So it's going to be up to the people playing hot seat to avert their gaze while the other players are putting in their orders. It's kind of whatever, but like it's the objectively best way to do hot seat multiplayer for any kind of simultaneous orders game. Worth noting, the game does keep track of the game state. It's an amorphous blob. That's the game state. And this game state, at the end of all of the battles, is presented to each player. So when player 1 takes their turn, and they change the game state by moving some squads around, summoning new monsters, etc., when it's player 2's turn, they do not see what player 1 did. They see the base game state from the end of the battle phase. So then they make their decisions in the organized phase based on that. Player 3 or whoever else, same thing. Everyone works from the same organized phase information. Then, once everyone has locked in their organized phase, at that point, a new game state is created for the start of the attack phase. And then it does the exact same thing. Player 1 makes their decisions, player 2 does not know what player 1 did whenever they make their decisions, etc. And then at the end of the attack phase, everyone is shown the final game state before the battles start. And at that point, you fight the battles. After the battles are finished, it goes back to the organized phase. Now, this is primarily a thing that has to happen with hot seat. If you're playing against AI and you're the only player, none of this really matters. The AI will be designed to not take any of your actions into consideration when they make their moves and make their decisions. They will simply look at the game state of each phase, and the AI will determine, hey, I'm going to do this based on what the game state is at any given point. Online play, I don't need to keep everything separate. I can just show every player the same game state. Let them do a variety of things, and then update the server with everyone's changes, and then show everyone the new server state, the new game state for whatever was done. And actually, I think I'm just going to delete that layer because that got really messy. So again, for hot seat multiplayer, there is game state. Players make their decisions separately with no idea of what's going on between them, one at a time, and then that all feeds into a new game state, and then repeat. And again, it's just a pop-up says, hey, it's X player's turn. That player goes. And then a new pop-up says, hey, it's Y player's turn. And then that player goes, etc. AI, since if there's only a single player, then there is game state, player makes decisions, AI makes decisions, and then based on those decisions, a new game state is formed, and it repeats. And obviously the AI can make those decisions in the background while the player is actively doing their thing. Because since the AI doesn't care what the player does and is only functioning on that game state, I can actually run it in the background quietly and just have the AI do whatever it's going to do without showing the player until the player goes, yeah, I'm done, and then show the new game state. Which means there shouldn't be, no matter how many AI players you're against, there should not be a point with the systems as I've developed them where you're sitting there just waiting for the AI to make their decisions. Unless you just knock out your organized phase very quickly and the AI isn't done yet. At which point, yeah, there's an unavoidable delay. But I'll actually be running different things separately. And hopefully I'm able to optimize everything well enough that it doesn't noticeably, take too long. Since there will be nothing to show, it'll just be a bunch of code running in the background. It should be pretty easy to get it very performant and get it working to a point where you don't have to wait for much. Now, worth noting, the alpha will not have AI. The AI will not be developed until beta. Mostly because I need to know final-ish stats and values and things to be able to program the AI well. Because I don't want to go with any of this, like, the kind of AI where I don't know what it's doing or why it's doing it. While it may be the future of AI where it just teaches itself how to play the game, I'm not comfortable with that because I've seen too many examples of it just doing strange things. Like, if you're using machine learning to, say, teach an AI to play Monopoly, if you Google it, you'll find or not Google, YouTube search it, you'll find a video where somebody did exactly that and used machine learning to see how an AI develops the ability to win Monopoly. And apparently the strategy they went with was buy the cheapest, absolutely worst places. Whatever they're called. Yeah. Monopoly. That game I haven't played in a long time that some of you may not have ever played. It's a thing. Just machine learning is a very interesting topic. Once it gets a lot more developed and is more powerful and more reliable, I will consider using it for future games. But for now, I'm going to do it the brute force way. I'm going to make decision trees. Lots and lots of decision trees. So I need the data of how the different numbers look before I can have the AI make intelligent decisions on what to do based on those values. My goal is to have different levels of AI, but more importantly, different styles of AI. So if you're the type of player that wants to just run at the enemy with all of your units and just smack things, I will have AI that you're capable of playing against and winning against. But multiplayer, you'll probably lose every battle, just saying. And that brings us to online multiplayer. And online multiplayer, hopefully, will be a thing. I know for a fact you'll be able to do hotseat multiplayer through Steam, because Steam has a screen share thing where you just play a game together with somebody that's on your friends list or whatever. But I want actual true online, and I'm hoping I'll be able to implement it with the new native online support that's in the Unity engine that will be likely improved by the time I load up the Unity engine again to get back to work on all the code and implementation and things. But the idea, since I'm not a fan, well, I am a fan. Peer-to-peer networking is cool, really cool. But it also, if you do it poorly, as FromSoft figured out, PC users can use a peer-to-peer. So, computer A, whatever, computer B, this is peer-to-peer, right? They directly attach to each other. Peer-to-peer does not require a server, but it does, if not done well, if not done literally better than some AAA companies do it, specifically console, because consoles you don't really have to worry nearly as much about bad actors abusing a peer-to-peer connection, but PC especially, you have to worry about that connection because if a malicious actor uses that connection to drop a payload of viruses or whatever onto somebody else's computer, that's your fault. If you did not have enough security on that connection, that's your fault. And you know what? If they hacked your connection and they were just better than you, it's still your fault. So I'm not a fan of at least small indie teams doing peer-to-peer connection. It would definitely be better, in my opinion, and much safer to have a big old server, or even a small server, just a server that the computers connect to. So player 1 sends their packet, server responds, player 2 sends their packet, server responds, and this can all happen at the same time, which also means that nobody can access the data before everyone else, so the game state that the server has at the end of the battles for the organized phase gets sent to every player. And then, after the organized phase, the players all submit their whatever throughout the organized phase, and at the end of the organized phase, once all the players have locked in the end of their turn, the server can then move on to the attack phase, and once again distribute that information to all the players. So there would literally be simultaneous play possible. But I want to actually go one further than that. I actually want, if I can get it, if I can pull it off, if I can do it well, I want to do what's called asynchronous spelling, whatever. Asynchronous multiplayer. What that means is there will be a server, and as I said, the server will keep track of what game state and what changes to game state have been made. But it will allow players to jump on whenever, take their turn whenever, and they don't have to sit there and wait for the other players to take their turns. They can just lock in their organized phase and walk away. Or close the program and go off and go to work or whatever. And then when they get home from work and they see that everyone else locked in their organized phase, they can then do their attack phase and go to the gym or whatever. And then come back and fight the battles, etc., etc. The players can all submit their orders and their changes at different times. And I'm really hoping I can pull it off. No promises, but that's the highest tier of success with the systems that I have in play. And the way that the systems mostly work is with online kept in mind. So, yeah. without more hard examples and things to show, that's the extent of what I can really cover there. But, yeah, I think it would be really cool to be able to play a campaign of Cuirass of Conquest Warfare with your friends over the course of weeks or months or whatever, in part because not everyone has time to sit down and play a strategy game for 12 plus hours, which is honestly what will probably end up happening if people try to sit down and play it all in one sitting. So I really feel like the asynchronicity would be a very strong addition to the multiplayer systems. But, again, there's no guarantee that online is going to be even possible for me, because I am a solo dev. As I said, I will likely be launching a Kickstarter once I hit beta, which by beta I should have the AI at least implemented, and hotseat multiplayer will be implemented from the very beginning. Alpha is going to basically be hotseat only, and the AI edition will definitely be in by beta. And hopefully the online play is also. But if I successfully run a Kickstarter and get the funding I need to hire an online programmer / expert, that will be a great step towards the ideal of an asynchronous online experience. And naturally, in case you're one of those people that plays the game a ton, and the people that you're fighting against don't, you will be able to have multiple save games, or rather multiple active wars on the server with different players. So even if, say, one group of friends only plays once a week for a couple hours, that doesn't prevent you from playing every single day against people online if you want to. Again, if I'm able to get the asynchronous multiplayer functional. But that is at the end of the day, the ultimate goal for Cuirass of Conquest. But that is literally more than I had intended to cover with this devlog anyway. And I did manage to succeed in keeping it all under an hour. So I'm going to go back to work on the world map and hopefully knock it out fairly soon. So that has been the November devlog for Cuirass of Conquest. I hope you enjoyed it, and until next time, have a good one.